I have this conversation on cycle. You need time, you need patience, you need to find your voice. That takes time and it requires patience, and you need to be willing to work another job to finance your musical habits. And if you can find your voice, you will not have to market your stuff at all. People will come and find you. We can catch up during the interview, or I could just give you a quick overview because it's not really that interesting. Basically, the truth is I came to Europe for two reasons. Number one, rebuild the Notre Dame, which was my original job in 2019.
Right.
And so if you check my current Spotify bio, I've updated people on what happened in 2022. I was in the midst of repairing it, and I was searing some beef over an open fire in the left bell tower for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And I caught fire to it again, and apparently the fire I caused was worse than the original. So they removed me from the construction team and haven't been, my past doesn't work. And so it's been kind of difficult. So I thought, well, where can I help out, where I'm wanted? So I came to Berlin. Two things here, rebuilding after the war, World War II. And then two, there was a wall here that was kind of a big deal. And I was wore my construction boots. I planned on helping really disassemble it today. And I got there realizing it's already done. So basically
Wow.
the town looks brand new, and the wall's gone. So I don't know really how much longer I need to stay here, but that's kind of where we've been at. How about you?
I'm not sure I can compete with that. Actually, this may be of interest, but I began to realize I'm of a certain age.
Okay.
Because my trash can was flattened by the FedEx truck recently. And it wasn't in the street. It wasn't even, we actually don't have streets. We have roads, which is like a street.
Well, no, younger generations just don't know, though.
Well, no, but I think this is important. We still have roads in Mississippi because we are a little behind the times, some might say. And while we don't have, gutters or storm drains, we have ditches, and ditches be crazy. But it was not even in the road, right? Or street, if you're from California. The sanitation department had clearly left it in my driveway. And then the FedEx guy was just like, hey, there's a trash can here. I think I'll just obliterate it. So he just ran over it. And
I'm really sorry.
No, yeah, it was rough.
I know that's triggering for you, and I just want to acknowledge that I feel the pain and the assault that's been caused to you from that event. If there's anything I can do in the way of therapy or self-help or emotional regulation, I'm here for you. And I know that's speaking from a place of privilege, and I don't want to push that on you.
I appreciate that. I do. I did set up a GoFundMe account.
Oh, good.
And I don't expect people to do anything, but I am going to post about it every day.
That's good. Let's check in about that. Let's touch base in about 10 minutes, see how you're doing.
Okay,
just real quick, not a sponsorship, but today I'm in Berlin, and I had to come to the supermarket in Berlin, and I got two treats. One of them are some biodegradable Erdnuss peanuts. So let's test those out. And number two, thank God Halloween is over, because I have gotten myself a German chocolate Santa. Perfect. And I plan on sort of just sharing with you in the audience kind of how these things taste. It's my goal everywhere I go to supermarkets, to blend in as the locals, as they say. And today I felt like a true local. So there we are. So why don't we give these a little taste here, these peanuts.
This is fantastic. So you said they're biodegradable. Does that mean the peanuts themselves or the packaging?
I'm assuming bio means biodegradable. Oh, these are very good.
Biological.
Well, an overpriced schnitzel and a glass of white wine about 20 minutes ago. I looked at my bill and I just thought, Do we need to fight another war with these people? How did this get so expensive?
Nice.
But I'm really thrilled. If I could just show you my surroundings,
Absolutely.
I don't know what that is, but it's something.
Did you assist in its construction at all
No,
while you were
no,
there?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
No.
It does not appear to have caught fire recently.
Mm-mm.
For those of you who don't know, Tony Anderson is my guest today, and he is quite established as both a solo artist and in the world of film and TV music, sync licensing, lots of incredible music. And one of the things that I respect about you, Tony, is it doesn't appear to me that you've ever tried to fit into a certain mold. It really genuinely feels like you write the music that you want to write, and you've had great success doing that. And I think that that's incredibly admirable and maybe says a little something about what I generally tell people who are just starting out, which is kind of find the thing that you really love and what you really want to do rather than chasing what you think other people want for you, right? Um, so if we could, before we get too far into all of my questions at once, if you could just kind of tell us how you started making music and what kind of changed things for you. At what point did you have your sort of breakthrough?
Wow, that's an incredibly kind intro. You know, the thing I respect about your channel and why I wanted to chat with you is because I feel like you really do tap into the younger producer or the starting producer who's really trying to get going without playing by the quote unquote, industry rules.
Hmm.
And you do what you love doing. I mean, the way I found your music was I was drawn to he's doing something I don't hear other people doing. Your use of reverbs, your use of tape machines felt very intuitive, very natural. You're a great teacher, an incredible explainer. I thought, wow, this is like you could go five ways with this channel. And I've seen you sort of shift towards talking to the up and coming generation or maybe people who are peers of ours who are just wanting to get their stuff out there. So just to say that's kind of who I'm talking to today. Like if I try
Hmm.
to talk to everybody, I'm going to reach
Yeah,
nobody.
right.
And my favorite people to talk to are the people who are trying to get their stuff heard and out there because I know what that feels like. I still don't know music to this day. So you and I are kind of opposites there. And I learn from you so deeply when you dig into theory, when you talk about it. It's like a whole world I wish I would have paid more attention to. But I'm from really small rural towns in the US, like really small, like 1,200 people here, and now it's like down to 700 when I go back. I remember piano being a little part of my childhood, my upbringing, but I didn't like the songs. And, following the notes kind of made sense, but I could never get the muscle memory down. And the next time I ever touched a piano or a keyboard was actually a computer keyboard, PC keyboard, probably around 2000 or 2001. And this is when Fruity Loops was a big deal. And my brother had pirated a version of it in our family home in Central Florida at that time. And you could use the standard typing keyboard to trigger notes in FL Studio. And I just knew that Q was a C and like three was like a D sharp or something. I don't even remember. All I remember was like when you pressed enough of them together, it made sense. And that got me started with sequencing and layering things. And so while my siblings are really genius musicians, my older brother's in it, he's like a music encyclopedia god and he's a deep house DJ. Um, all of my siblings have actually like gone through the proper training with individual instruments that are orchestral. My brother Ben is like at a PhD level with French horn. Okay, so you've got my older brother Chris on one end, and then David, Ben, and Sharon on the other. But producing is what clicked with me because you could layer. So I didn't have to know technically what they knew. Chris was also a great percussionist, so his mind would work that way, just brilliantly lock in with grooves. But I thought, well, if I had time to figure this out, it would be genius. So enter programs like FL Studio, which is funny because I just re-downloaded FL Studio to open up my 20-year-old sessions. I bought it like last year. That journey didn't make me money. It didn't really introduce me to other people because I mean, I'm just a kid in high school in Central Florida at this time. And there was sadly not much conversation at that time about like what DAW are you on, and like I didn't even know what a DAW was, or
Mm.
all I remember was the first song I produced was for my Spanish teacher named Mrs. Winnie, and she was sort of old and disabled. Really, she was just morbidly obese. I'll just leave it at that. And she had enough energy to go and push play on a pre-recorded lesson in the CD player one day and walk back. What I did was I put a 30-second delay of silence at the beginning of it, followed by the Miss Winnie song, replaced the lesson CD with Miss Winnie, and made a song about her. And by the time she sat down at her desk, she was too exhausted to get back up and stop the CD. And that was when I realized, oh, my classmates think this is funny. I think this is funny. I made a beat. I typed in the words that I wanted it to say, and it kind of coded them. But between then and maybe 10 years later, there wasn't really ever any income. I didn't even know what film scoring was. I thought maybe it'd be cool to do electronic music. I had listened a lot to, I don't know that anybody would know these bands who's listening to your channel, but the Chemical Brothers, the Crystal Method, the Prodigy,
Mm.
breakbeat, basically, which I think is coming back, um, was enormous. And I didn't know what these synths were. I just remember hearing electronic music that had emotion with it and thinking that's what I want to do. So maybe like club music is what I thought I'd do. It wasn't until I got to college that a roommate heard what I was trying to do and said, dude, I make little films for like nonprofits and stuff like that. Could you just like try writing something custom for what I do? Like, and by the way, here's a bunch of CDs of these guys like Hans Zimmer. I'm like, who is that? Thomas Newman. Who is that? James
Mm.
Newton Howard. Who is that? Harry Gregson Williams. Who is that? Harry Gregson was the first one I connected with because it was electronic and orchestral together. And of course, when Narnia came out and scores like Man on Fire, those really resonated with me. Thomas Newman, I could never figure out what he was doing, but his piano chords were iconic. When I heard the American Beauty score, I was like, that's what I want to do. And then, of course, Hans Zimmer. And by the mid 2000s, he had started the Batman franchise. And I just was like, how does he get that much low end and bass and
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah into his stuff? So by '08, I wanted to intern for Zimmer. I was like, I'm going to pick my guy. I'm going to just, if I'm ever out there, and I was randomly, I was super broke, super poor, crashing on my brother's sofa on Second and Grand downtown in LA at the Colburn School of Music. Thank you, Ben. And 3 a.m., I get a call from a friend who was like one of Zimmer's composers. And I drove down to Santa Monica using a map because I couldn't afford an iPhone. They had just come out. And I was blown away seeing Hans's studio, seeing the scores from Black Hawk Down and The Last Samurai written by hand up just on a shelf. Just like, whoa, this is insane. Didn't meet Hans, but they were like, if you want to work here, you got to send your CDs in. So I just burned a bunch of them, sent my stuff in, and effectively the word was like, this is so bad, stop calling. Because I would be relentless. I did the thing that people
Mm.
told you to do, just keep calling back. And it just wasn't in the cards for me. I think I would have had to move out there. I didn't know how to make ends meet, and I would have been working for free. So I abandoned music at that time. And the next time I really picked it up was years later, doing something similar for that original friend, scoring a very meaningful film about a human injustice issue. And I did it. He had a budget this time, and I did it, and the music just flowed like water. So that's probably it was. I'm talking maybe 2008 or nine before I discover, oh, this is a thing that I might be able to do apart from working for a really well-known composer. Like, what if I could just do this on my own? So I charged $300 for that score. It was 30 minutes of music. I made $300, and I was like, I'm super wealthy. I can't let this get to my head. And over the years, I just sort of built a catalog of music by doing friends' films for little or no money. And I didn't even think, do I connect with these films? I just knew they're offering me a job. Here's a timeline. It forces me to finish music, and I get to buy more sample libraries with the money. Or I get to buy this thing that just came out in '08 called Omnisphere, like, or, some Native Instruments plugin that's cool. And then Spitfire came on the scene, and the sounds just started getting better and better and better. I still didn't know how to write for an orchestra. I didn't know that you shouldn't put a ton of delay on a string ensemble. You know what I mean? I wasn't paying attention, but
Yeah.
I just figured it out on my own. And I figured, well, if they're paying me to do this, this is good enough. But it truly just was not enough to to make ends meet. And so I really had to lay it down. And by 2012, I quit, put everything in a Dropbox folder because Dropbox had just come out, and put a note to my Facebook fan base just saying, hey, I used to be in music. Didn't really work out for me. I should actually find this post. We have to find this post.
Mm.
If you want to use this in your films, don't even credit me. Here's all the songs. Just use them. If they can be of help to you, use them. One guy took me up on that offer, whose video went viral several months later, and he was kind enough to do the opposite of what I asked. He credited me. And at the time, 23 million was viral for YouTube. Like, he was on the news. He was on the news over 23 million hits, which now, you know, Mr. Beast gets 23 million views before he even posts the video. I don't know how that happens, but he credited me. People asked for that song to be able to buy it. I had never uploaded anything online, so hence my very first upload. And soon after, people would write me on Facebook saying, where can I find more of this? Or I'd get a SoundCloud message, because SoundCloud used to be great in the early days. It used to be, you remember, it used to be focused on writing back and forth regarding your songs. And even the iPhone app, because at that point I could scrape enough together to buy an iPhone. The iPhone app let you comment with people back and forth. So people had been asking, do you have more stuff like this? Late 2012, I put my first album out on iTunes and started kind of developing maybe a listener base at the time, but who knew? Because I could never really access the stats. It wasn't until that year, end of 2012, that I was sleeping on the same brother's sofa, now living in Chicago. He was doing his master's at Northwestern in Evanston, right outside of Chicago. And I remember we watched a great documentary the night before on a man who spent time with bears and was killed by a bear. And I will always remember that man, because that's the dumbest thing you could do. But I respect it. And I was just traumatized that this man was eaten by his friends. And the next day, I had gone to Chicago to be a part of a nonprofit conference. At that time, I was working for a nonprofit. I meet a group called The Music Bed. Like, we do, like, this, the tagline was like, we help like wedding filmmakers find music for their wedding films. And I was just like, who names their company The Music Bed? Like, that's like naming a restaurant food or a car dealership car. And I dismissed it. But when I got to talking to them the last day of the conference, they're like, this is what we do. We find people who've written music. They own the music, they maintain ownership of it, but we synchronize it between pre-existing video content. And we're the go-between. So we'll take what you do, and if your stuff is good, we'll synchronize it and we'll take a fee off of that. And when they offered me an agreement, I was like shocked. I think I had played something for them on my iPhone. And I don't know, maybe I was in the first handful, like single digits of artists that had signed with them. My friend Jordan, who I now know through Music Bed, I think was maybe their first. And I didn't even read the agreement. I just signed it because I thought if I could make a few $100s a month through music, it would change my life. And what happened was my life changed very rapidly after that, because Music Bed, which is now the #1 sync licensing company in the US, we kind of grew together at the same time. And I don't say this with any kind of ego or any kind of arrogance. I feel like I can say this because Music Bed told me this info. But I think for a number of years, I was, if not their top artist, I was in the handful of top artists. My sound, I think, connected with filmmakers at that time, and I had a whole library of it. I had years of it. So I didn't come to the table with one album. I came to the table with hundreds of songs that I thought were not good. Because if we go back to Zimmer's team's assessment of my work, I'm thinking of it down here, but somehow people are paying for it up here. And it really shocked me. I got a good business manager involved in my life, or I should actually say he invited himself into my life because he thought this guy's going to be a train wreck if he doesn't get some financial help. And he was right, because I operated in a very poverty mindset. I think those of us who don't grow up with any wealth or any means, we don't know how to use it. It's like dumping fuel on a fire and it just goes everywhere. But interestingly enough, as my sync licensing career started to take off, this was 11 years ago in 2012, streaming came out a few years later, and I didn't know what Spotify was, but I signed up for it. And so we had iTunes and Spotify and now Apple Music and Spotify here. We had film licensing going here. We had YouTube ad revenue. So again, if your music gets synchronized or placed in a YouTube film, you as the author, if you own the copyright, you get cut into quarterly YouTube ad revenue. And then occasionally I'd still score films. And so I had 4 table legs of revenue established probably by the year 2015. And since then, it's been a beautiful season of growth. It's been, like I said, 11 years. And last year at the 10-year mark was the first year I said, okay, I have actual proof now that this is not going away overnight. I don't want to live in fear about it, but I feel like I'm just getting started, and I feel like I can rest now and really start to chart the course and plot out what is actually in me that I'm trying to get out. I've been trying to do that the whole way, but all along the way, people have told me it's just going to disappear. Maybe their experience was negative or they experienced loss in some way. And it hasn't. It's kind of like when people told me marriage was going to be the worst thing ever and it was going to just destroy me. And it's actually been the greatest gift on earth. And now they say, oh, well, you just wait until you have kids.
Yep.
Then it'll really destroy you. And I'm like, I guess people are just wrong. And here I am at the 11-year mark, and I feel so much gratitude, immense gratitude. This isn't something I could have planned. I don't feel entitled to any of it. I never use the word deserve. And I feel immense gratitude for where I get to be at.
Man, that was so good. At some point in that, I forgot I was actually part of the conversation. It was just like I was watching a documentary of what you were unfolding there. It was fantastic. And there's so much to unpack in that I feel a little validate, like just to be totally transparent, I am not where you are in terms of my artist career, right? I don't know what people's perception of me is, but I feel like our background is kind of similar in being from small town America,
Mm-hmm.
no
Yeah.
connections,
Right.
zero connections,
Right.
and just kind of doing stuff that we think is cool and trying to see if anyone wants to listen to it. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of, as far as I can tell, that's the only thing you can really control. Like you can't control the opportunities that you may get. You can only control like your craft and getting as good at doing the things that you really enjoy doing as you can. And that is so, I think that's such a powerful story that you just laid out because we tend to think, especially a lot of artists that I see that have maybe just started, and if nothing happens after like a year or two, it's like, how does anyone make it in the music industry? It's the music industry is dead, and it's, you got to think like at least a decade. I think, you know,
Mhm.
if you
Mhm.
really want to see anything come to fruition.
Yeah, 10 years that's a good metric. Um, a lot of people during the pandemic, early days, reached out to me, and I'm sure they reached out to anybody who was in sync licensing at that point because tours were canceled and no one knew the future of the film industry. And I got a lot of well-intentioned people just saying, hey, how do I get this kick started? Because they heard my work and they thought his stuff is like really simple. And I had several of them just be like, I know I can do what you do. Just tell me, like, give me the links to buy what you own, and just tell me how you did what you did. It was
which
kind of
is
like,
which is such an insult, by the way.
it was, and I've been learning that when people approach it like that, they're just acting out of ignorance. I don't think they were trying to hurt me.
Hmm.
It did sting a bit because I just thought we're humans here. Like, to just casually assess my life or work up to this point to like just tell me which plugins to buy. I was kind of like, okay, but I didn't want to react.
And what a weird way to approach asking for a favor.
Yeah, that was odd. It was
It's
odd.
like, you know,
And they're kind of like, can you just tell me, like, I don't want to get too in the details, but could you just tell me like how you mic your piano, how you got successful on I just need, like, please just do a quick intro to Music Bed and make this happen for me. And what I thought was I pushed back a little bit on their time frame. So I tried not to take offense at the way they perceived my work. I tried to think, okay, let's give them a structure of time frame. I said, how comfortable or uncomfortable would you be knowing there's maybe like a 3 to 5 year minimum that I'm seeing at the fastest end and maybe 10 years on the long end. Oh my God, I can't do 10 years. Not, anyone who's like, I'm going to get on TikTok. I'm going to get just, because you're not on TikTok. So I'm going to do it and I'll bypass all the stuff. And not a single, like I checked the other day. I actually did check just, are these people still releasing music? And they bowed out, all of them, in 2022. So the patience thing is what you have. And it's what I've had built into me, which is think long term, and also think ownership. So long term time frame is one, and then ownership of your assets is second. Um, this is kind of an aside, but one of the reasons I actually encourage people to not get into a lot of film scoring, where they have to give up ownership of the master and publishing, because of course the master is like the pre-built sandwich; it's everything together. The publishing is just the ingredients of the sandwich that you can use to make a new sandwich. But owning both of these that's your long-term wealth. I only make a living right now because I never gave my sandwich away to anybody. And I've had people ask for it, so to speak, over the years. I remember I did a film score for some people that I really love. And when they came back to me a few years later, they asked, they wanted to pay the same amount, but they wanted equity of the songs. And I just said, absolutely not, because that's not how this works. Like, if you want me to work my best, I'm incentivized by owning what I make. So I'd actually take a lower fee if you'd let me own what I want to make. And right now, as we're seeing larger corporations go around and try to scoop up people's catalogs, and I see friends of mine selling, I understand why people need to. But effectively, what you're doing is you're selling a living, breathing ecosystem, which is what you're building right now. We may not be in the same place categorically in life at the same moment, but you're building an ecosystem underground in the soil, in its nutrient density, that is going to cause a lot of things to grow over the years. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at building a slow burn under the soil. Anything that's above the soil is great, but it's all a flash in the pan. I've seen people move on, and it's okay. I don't take it personally. So I think it's the time frame. How long can you let the soil rest? How long can you let the wine decant? Like, it's like feeding a starter for sourdough bread. The more you feed it over the years, it's going to taste better every time you bake a loaf. How long do we have to wait? Can we be patient, waiting for wealth to come later? And second, are we willing to own our assets? Meaning, we're only going to take jobs and take work where we get to own our work. And that actually sadly means a lot of us cannot sign with record labels. And that's painful for a lot of people, because the label is over here like a bank, saying, we'll loan you money, help get you on the road, help get a tour going, help schedule you out, get you marketed, do all the things. But man, not only do they need that money recouped, they're going to own the master and publishing, or at least a portion of it. So I think for the young artists right now, it would feel like the best time to be writing music technologically. Think about the stuff that I've learned from you in 5 of your videos that have inspired how I now use reverb differently, or how I use one single synthesizer differently. We're in the best time to make it. And I think for a lot of artists, maybe the most confusing time for them to figure out how to release it and how to get their stuff heard. Because the expectation, sadly, right now, is that if I release it, it's only good and it was only successful if it's heard right now. And I can just push back gently on that and say, most of the music that is in circulation on my Spotify right now came out 7 to 10 years ago. Okay. That's what we want as artists. We want our stuff to have a timelessness to it, but we have to have the patience. We can't freak out. We can't worry about going viral. We can't be looking at Instagram numbers and real numbers, because the algorithm changes so consistently. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse here, because so many people know this already, but the algorithms change so consistently. We get hung up on that. We're no longer free. We're no longer creating and writing from a place of freedom. We're writing from a place of fear. And fear kills our style of music. It's instrumental. There are no words. So our souls are what get transferred through that. And I can hear, if a friend of mine, or my own music for that, maybe I should use me as the example, I can hear when I'm afraid, or when I'm distracted, or when I'm spread too thin, or when I overbaked something or underbaked something, so to speak. Usually for me, I layer the crap out of my songs and destroy the intimacy. That's what I love to do, is
Mm.
destroy something by smothering it. But we can't focus, and we're not free and mobile when we're up here in the algorithm conversation.
Yes. And you mentioned that we had talked a little bit, and you mentioned that word before, timeless, timelessness. And that is so good. You know, my channel's kind of become more education based recently, because I
Mhm.
realized at some point that I had kind of a unique blend of having the classical background. And that's what that's all about, right? It's like, what are these concepts that have already stood the test of time?
Yeah,
We don't have to reinvent the wheel. In a lot of cases, musically speaking, we can incorporate those things into more modern languages musically, and
yeah.
it still works. You know, it still
Mm.
makes, it still sets music apart that does that, I believe. And it's the same thing that you're talking about from the marketing side of things. There is still something to be said for taking the time to do the things that you really want to do well, and not worrying so much about, oh my gosh, this only got 1,000 plays or 100 plays
Yeah,
or 10
yeah.
plays on Spotify.
I'm off the drugs when I write, and I'm on the drugs when I release.
Mm.
And by that I
Yep.
just mean social media. And people send me links to stuff every day. Hey, listen to this. I just say no. I've been saying this for years. And these people, it's like, stop sending me music. What I don't need more of it. I work on it
Yeah.
every single day. I don't want my palette disturbed, not just by the noise of, who's actually out there releasing right now. And then you start feeling comparison that you're not doing enough. But I also don't want to intake a whole lot because it'll show up. I remember when I
Mm.
wrote a song for a score that now today I know is the exact chords of Hello by Adele. And I just happened to do it with a 41-piece string orchestra in Slovakia. It's like, whoops, already recorded it. Sorry. And I get it, it's chords. But I've had to step away and really re-examine how to keep my soul quiet, how to keep it clear, especially in a really noisy world. And I'm
Mm.
on a laptop now. I moved away from the Mac Pro. I moved away from desktop. I moved away from being in the studio because I recognized that I had to get back to the basics of how I started writing way back when. And that was frankly just really free with a few software tools, a lot of limitations. And so if I need to sketch out a piano, I'll sketch something out. But I try to do my best when I'm writing, especially to just get into a quiet place. I was just in Stockholm the last 10 days where they're about to have only 4 hours of daylight each day. And it was actually really fun seeing how that area is really conducive for this type of writing. It's really moody outside. It's cloudy a lot. I connected with a few composers there, and I'm always learning from them. How do you guys do what you do? I got to see Nils Fromm here at Funkhaus in Berlin about 3 weeks ago. My friend Luca Tensio bought me a ticket and we went together, and I'd never seen anything like that in my life. He doesn't wear in-ear monitors.
Mm.
Everything's done by feel. He's a madman. It's absolutely unbelievable. And it was so inspiring. So I always want to stay childlike and intake stuff while I'm writing, while also at the same time doing the opposite. And so this is my conflict. I don't want to listen to music, but at the same time, I need to be exposed to it to keep an open mind, right? I don't want to be
Yep.
on social media and the noise. However, I recognize that it's a way of connecting with
Mm-hmm.
people. It's a form of connection. And if I become elitist, like the friends of ours we all have who have to tell us when they're getting off social media and have to tell us that they've been gone. It's like, dude, nobody missed you. We were not paying attention. We were actually thinking about how our host was doing, but thank you for telling us you were gone. Like, I don't want to be a separatist. I want to be where people are at. And guess what? I love Instagram. I love social media. I love YouTube. Like, I'm not above them. I'm not better than them. And unfortunately, because Spotify exists, and fortunately, because it exists, we can see numbers attached to songs. And that's new. And I do want to acknowledge when I started this process of releasing, there were no metrics. There was no YouTube to get distracted by. There was no Instagram. There was no Facebook. There was, I mean, SoundCloud, but that was conversation based. I didn't have to deal with the pressure people are dealing with right now. That right out of the gate, it's really not about your work. It's about the view count, the stream count. And I'm seeing the Zoomers, which that's what I call Gen Z. Sorry, guys, but you're Zoomers. I love you. I'm a millennial. I'm a dumb millennial, but you're a Zoomer. And The Zoomers are all dealing with crazy mental health crises after one or two album releases, right?
Mm.
How crazy is this? So a lot of the posts are like, hey, I did an album or I had a single and it either didn't do well or it did well. And both of them cause an equal amount of mental distress. So they can't even get the next single out of the gate, let alone an album. So it's a level of fragility that's caused by all the noise, all the chaos, and all the comparison. I don't envy it at all, but I do know the principles that you and I employ to write music are the same for them as they are for us.
Mm.
If I can be really blunt, I feel like they don't want to hear it. See how I sound like an 80-year-old man who fought in the Korean War? It's like, but they don't want to hear it. I have this conversation on cycle. You need time, you need patience, you need to find your voice. That takes time and it requires patience. And you need to be willing to work another job to finance your musical habits. And if you can find your voice, you will not have to market your stuff at all. People will come and find you. They will do it. I saw this week with my vinyl record. I have not even announced that it's out. And it blew me away. People were like refreshing my Instagram apparently when I posted the link because I had shared that it was coming out November 1st. I had to delay it because the director who's doing the film about it, Mitchell Mullins, is unfortunately really sick right now in Bolivia shooting something else. So we're delaying it. And the amount of orders that came through, I was literally in tears, bro. Like people refreshing a page to buy a product to support my work, not complaining about the price or the shipping, but in line, ready to go. And I'm here on the scale. Okay. I'm in the low mids, as I like to say, which is where I also like to write a lot of my frequencies, which is why my stuff sounds like mud that's not very loud. This is true for artists of all scales. If we can find our voice, we won't have to market a day in our lives. And so I don't envy the situation of chaos and noise, but I can tell you the principle of learning to find your voice. I don't know the last time I heard somebody that actually said, I want to do that. I'm not trying to be mean.
Yeah.
Not trying to be mean, but I feel like there's very little receptivity around this very important core critical issue.
And it is, I think you nailed it as far as they are so exposed to metrics in a way that we really weren't. Because I
Yeah.
didn't start releasing until 2016. But even then, I was like, oh, if some obscure blog writes about what I just put out and I literally have not put anything else out, then that's like, this is a huge success. It's like I didn't have all of the Spotify data and all of that stuff. I had SoundCloud, which was like at that time an organic way of kind of getting some people
That's how we met.
to listen to my
That's
music.
how
Yeah,
we met.
yeah, exactly. I think it's a combination of that and the fact that with social media, just the way that it works, you only see the things that are successful. Like you only see
Yeah.
the things that are doing well. And therefore you think everyone else is doing well. You don't know
Mm-hmm.
how long they've been doing it. You're automatically,
Right.
immediately comparing yourself to the top 1 or 2% probably on
Right.
whatever
Right.
platform that you're on. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get there. If you can possibly take a step back and view it from that lens, it's like, oh, well, of course. Or like, wow, what did I expect? But while you're down
Mm-hmm.
in it, I think it is really hard to understand that. And I completely agree. I don't envy that being their introduction into trying to get their music heard by people. That's a tough way
Right.
to be kind of baptized by fire. You said something in the very first when you were kind of laying out how your career has gone to this point that I want to circle back to.
Right.
And it was the fact that it wasn't you reaching out to all of these people who were already established and mega stars, right? Like Hans Zimmer. You tried, and I think we all try. For example, you started with Music Bed when they were just starting out, so you grew together. When I
Right.
started releasing music, I was like, how do I get on Music Bed? Because I see this guy, Tony
Mm-hmm.
Anderson, and all of these people that seem to be doing really well. I didn't get on Music Bed because they were already
Mm-hmm.
established and I was not.
Right.
And that is one thing that I try to tell people is like find people who are on your level or close to it, that you like what they're doing, they like what you're doing, and grow with those people. You know, most of the time, if I'm being honest, my music was not ready to be on Music Bed back then.
If artists can focus on building their voice clearly throughout the years, like one of the things I see in you, for example, that I would say this is how you're doing it, is you're using organ in really, really, really creative ways. You loop things in really mesmerizing ways with tape machines. The way you play synthesizers tends to be more moody, gritty, dark, but highly emotive. You keep it simple. You don't change chords too much, and I can remember your melodies. All those I can attach and get to you in under 15 seconds because that's your work. As you hone that in, and as other artists do that, how many new licensing agencies do you think will probably pop up in the next 5 to 10 years? Quite a few. How many of them are going to look for a robust catalog of work that maybe hasn't been acquired or signed? Quite a lot. I mean, I have a probably the most optimistic view and have always maintained this with and without money in my bank account about the future of music and the needs in front of us because of how much film content is being made, how many shows are being written. Obviously, not during the strike, but personally, no, I'm not going to say it. I almost did my own strike against the writers because so much stuff is so bad out there anyway. When they were like striking, I'm like, dude, no, I'm striking you. Write better content. Gosh, dude. Anyway, long story short, I'm super optimistic. There's more than enough space. It does not need to be a competition. It does not.
Someone wants to know what your favorite cheese is.
You know what it is? It's a cheese from the Loire Valley called Seltzer.
Okay, good.
It's
Well,
unbelievable. It's a
I'm
soft goat cheese with a vegetable ash rind, and it looks like a raised pancake. And it's
interesting.
about the size of a center of a hubcap, like this.
Yeah,
And I think about Seltzer all year long. It is known as the goat of cheese, which is funny because it's also a goat cheese. That's my answer.
nice.
Sel Seltzer.
Well, that's really why we're all here, I think. I have a question on the post that I made that says, what's the next evolutionary step for independent artists now that YouTube/Spotify is more corporate America, his quotes, and Bandcamp has a very grim future? What are your thoughts on kind of um, this sort of negativity that's swirling around the music space right now? Because I think a lot of young artists feel like they're being kind of rug pulled, like there's no avenues for them to get their music heard these days.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I will validate that all of the above are true. Spotify has built one of the coolest algorithms in the world, and they're also one of the most corrupt organizations on the planet. Recently, I've been digging into this thing that they do where they buy songs out. Have you heard about this? They will actually approach artists who make music and say, we need you to kind of make some names in the
Yeah.
jazz genre or the mood music genre, the peaceful piano stuff. We're going to pay you a fee, but we're going to own the song.
Mm.
So then Spotify's only paid maybe a few grand, and they populate playlists full of songs that they own, meaning they get
Yep.
all the revenue from it. That's called corruption, in case anyone was looking to update the definition online. Um, Spotify also has disallowed us as artists from reaching our full audience, as has YouTube, as has Instagram. So Instagram has capped story view counts per frame at somewhere between 3 and 10%, but most of us are experiencing 3 to 5% right now. Spotify wants you to pay 50 cents per stream to reach new listeners, or what they recommend is reaching existing listeners. So if X amount of people follow you on Spotify and you release a song, you can't natively, organically reach the people that have already chosen to follow you. YouTube, same thing. Creators across the board have just said, I work so hard on my videos and on my films, and I have X amount of people that subscribe to me, and I update and upload on a schedule. I do the things I'm supposed to do. I engage, and we're just seeing this decline. So what do we do in a world where certain people are bought and paid for, whether it's political or just monetary or whatever? Certain people feel like they're censored or blacklisted. Certain people feel like they're just not getting heard. Well, I think one practical thing we do is look backwards in history. How have people been making music for hundreds or thousands of years. Because we're the first generation that's had to deal with this conversation, which is fear that it won't reach the right people before we even know if the music's good. I think we focus on the key thing, which is the music good? First of all, is it ready? So has it reached its peak of maturity to be picked, like something in the garden, or a good bottle of wine that's been cellared properly? And then secondarily, not just when was it like ready? Was it good? Number two, does it now deserve to go out and exist in the public spaces? And those are actually our two separate conversations, because not everything we write is going to be made for the mass market. But first of all, do we even know when it's ready? And then second, does it deserve to live? I think then we can be worried a little bit about the conversation of where it ends up. But if I can be really blunt, I would like to hear people spend more time on the music they are writing and releasing, more than I want to have the conversation about the world burning. Because my main concern with television writing is that it's not good. My main concern with a lot of music, at least in the genre and the space that I'm a part of, is that I want it to be better. I don't think my stuff is at the top tier. I'm not saying that, but there's a lot of laziness out there. There's a lot of forced, we're going to get a song a day out. Sorry, a song a week out. People entering the mood music space going, I think I can just kind of do some ambient slowed stuff, right? Like, I think I can just kind of throw like, hey, tell me just which piano you own, and let me just get a piano, and let me get some reverb pedals, and let me see. Oh man, okay, this Jameson guys. Let's see what he got. Okay, let me just do that. Like, how can I just do that? And I would say most of the time when I find people who are deeply terrified about a home not existing in the future for music they're working on, the music being written is not ready yet, and it doesn't deserve to live. Okay. And I've been guilty of the same thing. So I don't speak from a place of condemnation. I speak from a place of wanting our work to be the best that it can, and knowing that most of the time the problem is on our end. Okay. The problem is the song wasn't right when it went out, or it was experimental. And so
Hmm.
therefore you're not going to have a mass market. Like when I did the 9/11
Yes.
album called Debris, like who's going to want to listen to an album that is ambient and slightly orchestral that has sounds of a terrorist attack going on behind it? You know what I mean? Like, I can answer that for you. Nobody wants to listen to that. My friend Bruno, who does programming and playlisting at Apple, hard pass. You know what I mean? Like, it's, dude, I had a hard time getting the 9/11 memorial staff to listen to it. Right. So, does that mean that there's something wrong with the algorithm or there's a conspiracy? No. It means that the thing I was most passionate about was about me. It was about self expression. It was about me saying, I want to invite the listener into an experience of 9/11. I want to honor the victims. I want to create something with gravity from that day. And guess what? That was only for me.
Hmm.
I'm really proud of it. I'm glad at how it turned out. It took almost a year to get done, but it was a hard pass for most of my listeners. Now, that didn't discourage me, but I certainly did not blame the algorithm. I thought in this case, I think the music's right, meaning I think I worked it enough, but not too much. I think tracks like Debris and Infinite, I go, okay, we definitely got those. Those feel good. Did it deserve to live? Yes. It was that meaningful to me. And I've heard directly from family members of people who were lost on 9/11. Then we get to the third conversation. Does that mean it's going to succeed up here? Absolutely not. Am I offended by that? No. Am I sad? Yes, because I'm an artist and I want the stuff that I work really hard on to be appreciated by other people. But in that case, that was self-expression. So does that making sense? I think some of us are doing stuff self-expressive purposes, and then
Yep.
we're freaking out about the algorithm before the song's even out. But like we don't even know our audience out there yet. So I'm not saying don't freak out. I'm not saying we shouldn't be afraid. What I am saying though is that none of that is helpful in making our music as deep and meaningful and powerful and potent as it could be and should be.
Right. And what you're saying there is not that you should not have made Debris. It's
Right.
that maybe your expectations had to change for what the outcome would be and the reception would be for something like that.
Yeah.
And that's something that, a lot of times art is selfish by its very nature, because it's like it's our innermost things that need to come out. And then once we get them out, and I do believe art is supposed to be shared, but once you share it, it's really none of your business anymore.
There
Like
you go.
how other people respond to it.
Hmm.
So you can dwell on that and say, well, everybody else sucks, you know.
Yeah.
Or you can say, well, what did I think was going to happen when I wrote something that was incredibly intimately important to me, but no, I mean, let's face it, did not have the mass appeal,
Yeah,
to
absolutely not.
have
Like
legs to go.
here's the other thing that I see happening. An artist who does something that trends well on TikTok, a YouTuber who makes a video that does do well, right? Because all of us who complain, we've had something work in
Hmm.
our favor, whether it's an individual that makes goes out of their way to make it known to us through writing or otherwise that I really love your stuff. All of us have had some point of connection or some hope there, right? And then what do? Then we get locked in the opposite trap of now I'm going to make more of that to feed the algorithm. And the this actually became a thing once Music Bed became more known. And I'm not going to mention names here, but once Music Bed kind of became known, Music Bed had a homepage, a top 10 tracks, right? And mine, I remember, was they were on there all the time. They just were. And it got to the point that I had to almost call Music Bed. Well, I did call them, but had to almost really say, guys, this is obnoxious. I'm me. This is annoying. Like, what is this monoculture? And they're like, look, we're doing this based off of sales. Your stuff is selling. The problem is now what we're noticing is we're going to get rid of the homepage. We're noticing that what's happening is people just are writing whatever song you wrote. And I wasn't always in P1. I wasn't always in position one, but we're noticing that it's just populating a lot of sound alike stuff. And so we're actually just going to kill the whole homepage. And when they did, my income took a big drop, but it was good because it changed for the better the whole ecosystem of Music Bed, which is we're going to stop telling people what's selling because if they don't know what's selling, they actually have to be authentic and write what's coming from the heart, right? So to this day, when was that they got rid of that? All I know is it's been 7 years since I've logged into my Music Bed account to see what song is making money. And I'm not saying this because I want to appear virtuous. I don't log into Music Bed to see what's making money, and I don't log into Music Bed to see what's not making money. I let what they pay me every month be a complete and utter surprise. A lump sum comes to my PayPal account, and I don't know what songs earned me that money. And this is a discipline. If any Music Bed artists are hearing this or anyone in licensing is hearing this, I encourage you to employ this discipline of not looking, because the minute we look and we know what's selling, how can we not be influenced to do more of what we know makes money? Now, some of us are not, I don't, oh God, this is going to sound so mean. I'm just going to say it. Some of us are not artists, we're replicators, right? We're reverse engineers. Some of us are actually on this earth, not to necessarily be making new content, but some people, I think their role is to kind of do the day to day, like, scoring for a TV show that they don't think is super ultra important. They just kind of want to clock in and clock out. They're not trying to make a name for themselves. And for those people, they're like, look, man, my whole job, because I know a lot of these people, my whole job is to just reverse engineer stuff.
Yeah.
Hand cover bruise got dropped in yet again. The score from Arrival got dropped in yet again. I have to reverse engineer. And my
So
whole job
that's
doing
so
sound.
that's the I heard someone describe it as the artisan approach rather than an artist. So you're taking like a set of instructions where it's like we want you to make something like this, like a table or something, and
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
well, your job is to make that table, and there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. It's just a different mindset
A
completely.
different mindset.
Sorry
And
to
if that's
interrupt you.
no, 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 that's great. I'm glad you mentioned that because if that's your role, a lot of this doesn't apply. Like, dude, literally just go for it. Find the tempo of hand covers bruise, get a weird tonal texture and just hit a piano note a lot. And like I hear it every week on Netflix. That's fine. But if you're really digging deep into what you're doing, knowing that certain things were blessed financially and not blessed financially, it messes with all of us because everyone says at the beginning it's not about money until it is, until you can't pay your bills. And then what happens is a sea of bitterness erupts out of all of us. And what do we look to do? We look to blame the societal structures around us, which in this case are Spotify, YouTube, Instagram. We're going to blame the algorithm because it's harder for us to take personal responsibility that maybe our music is just not built for a mass market. Maybe it's built for that. Like take Johnny Greenwood, for example. He scores incredible films, but by no means, I would honestly say texturally, tonally, he's one of the best on the planet. Is he the most listened to on Spotify? Absolutely not. John Williams, or sorry, John Hopkins. John Hopkins. I have a lot of respect for John Williams. I just don't listen to him a lot. John Hopkins does some of the most gorgeous tonal work on the planet. Is he anywhere near where The Weeknd or some of these pop stars are? Absolutely not. But I can name you 5 other artists that have less than 1,000 monthly listeners that I listen to all the time, who I absolutely adore and love. That's the stuff I go to. And so all I'm getting at here is like when it comes to the mass market, a lot of our work is not supposed to reach it. Not everybody can be a part of the mass market anymore. You know what I mean? Like there are too many of us out there competing for that headspace. So most of us need to get accustomed with being in the low mid. Like that's where we're going to be most of our lives. And it doesn't mean we're not going to earn money. It just means we're not going to be likely very well known because so many people are making music right now. Like before the pandemic, I think I remember hearing that there were less than 10,000 songs a day coming out, something like that. It was pretty moderate. From last time I checked, we got up into the hundreds of thousands of songs coming out per day. Okay. So let's also be fair about the fact that we have more people releasing than ever before. So I'll land the plane here. How do you combat that? You write more precise music that is a better expression of your internal world. So instead of focusing then on quantity of work, you focus on quality. And I know I just said I'd land the plane, but this is true of painters. I've learned this from painters. If a painter does too much work and then they die, their work is devalued because their work is too common. How does that not apply to music? It absolutely applies to music. Like when a chef opens up too many restaurants, he loses his potency. She loses her potency. We stop going to eat there because they got in over their skids. You know what I mean? So like in music, we've been told write and release consistently, get on the algorithm, always have something new coming out. This is one of the things labels do that just destroy artists' careers. Like they establish a cadence. I remember hearing from a label who will not be named right now saying, Tony, your biggest weakness is cadence. We need you on a cadence. So if you sign with us, we're going to give you a loan. I was like, I don't need that because I'd rather go to a bank. Because if I took a loan from a bank and I paid it back, I would still own my master's in publishing. So no, we're not doing that. But we're going to get you on a cadence. We're going to hit that algorithm. We're going to get your numbers up. That would have destroyed me. I would advise us doing the opposite. Screw the cadence. You focus on the quality of your work. Can they remember it? Do they want to come back to it? Can they remember it? Do they want to come back to it? Like those two things transcend the whole algorithm conversation. And I don't mean to be dismissive, but does it make sense kind of what I'm drilling at?
Yeah. I think the last thing you said right there, those two factors, that's, if you take nothing away from this conversation but that, I think that's incredibly valuable. I really genuinely believe we have more control than we've ever had. And I feel like the new gatekeeper, rather than being the labels, is how many skills you're willing to learn that are related to the thing you really want to be doing.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is like, how willing are you to take ownership of to take ownership of your audience and do things that allow you to reach them in a personalized way that is not dependent on algorithms. So much dependent on algorithms. Everything to some degree is. But so to me, and maybe that's a selfish way to look at it because it's what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, YouTube, well, my composition teacher, Luigi Zanninelli, absolute genius, studied with Samuel Barber and Giancarlo Menotti. I had an incredible privilege that he was in Mississippi and was able to study with him.
Yeah.
The absolute most valuable thing musically that I've ever done in my life. But he used to say, I teach so I don't have to write shit.
I like
He
that.
literally said that to me. And if you think back across the centuries, that's literally been the case for composers for a very long time. It's like they would have a church job like Bach did, you know? They would do things that were not outside of music necessarily,
Hmm.
but were related to what they were doing, but also didn't force them to have to write maybe what they didn't want to. And now in some
Yeah.
cases, like in Bach's case, I don't know if he wanted to write a cantata every Sunday, but he did. Um, So I think it's important now. I think that stands just as true, but now in the digital sort of ecospace, you could teach people all over the world with a YouTube channel or something, right?
Hmm.
And that can kind of provide you an avenue if you can figure out a way to line all of those things up so that it all kind of points back to your music. Um, it's just another avenue, that is not so dependent on your music having to fit in a certain square peg into a round hole type of situation. So um,
Hmm.
I think that the new gatekeeper is like how much are you willing to do those things, rather than a record label saying here's what you can and can't do. I don't think we need the label anymore. The label is obsolete. If you're still taking a record label deal like that today, I think you're crazy. Because in my experience,
Oof.
they still want you to have a following. Probably before you even get the label deal, you're going to have the following. So what do you need them for?
Yeah. It's like,
So
here's
I
our,
would cut out the middleman.
I love that. I can't tell you how much I agree with your sentiment about labels. It's like, hey, our reward for you building a following is to give you debt that you owe us back.
Right. Yeah, we'll
And
be
folks are
taking
going
that
to,
now.
unbelievable, dude. And I mean, I just keep meeting artists right now who are even trying the live show thing and the live and the sorry, they're trying the live show thing to expand their reach with their audience. They're trying the physical merchandise thing, going to cassette tapes or vinyls or CDs. It's all an attempt to kind of capture this audience, right? Because with Spotify, we don't know who these people are. Like, what does monthly listeners mean? Who even knows? And are they listening actively? We don't know. Most people, get so excited when they get on a playlist. I just go, I don't think anybody really knows who they're listening to on a playlist, especially for instrumental. It's all passive. So like, hey, don't
Hmm.
get too excited. It's kind of cool to be able to flex and share on social media, but we're all in this attempt to try to figure out who are the people listening to our work, and for the reward from a label to be like, we're going to get behind you and we're going to like give you money that you're going to owe us back to try to help you find that. I'd rather take my own money and risk it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Absolutely. And also too, the label's not asking, is this young person ready yet? Like, are they capable of really capturing an audience yet? You know what I mean? They're not even asking that. They're throwing someone out there just going, hey, hope it goes well for you. We're going to try to market you, but like, I don't want that life, man. I don't want that level of stress and expectation. I don't want to owe anybody. Like, you already have enough stress trying to finish a song. That is actually the hardest thing in our entire industry to do, which is finish something. Just finish a single song, finish an album, finish a release. That will literally kill you. The stages of my songwriting are usually joy and exhilaration that it's sort of out and coming together. There's a little bit of production work. I start losing focus. I lose touch with the core and the soul of the song. I try to step away from it. I come back to it. I'm completely unenchanted and a malaise sets in. I then start trying to figure this thing out. I get angry and insecure that I've somehow messed it up, but I don't know exactly what way I've messed it up. And then I generally lose interest and eventually get to a point of almost a knockdown, drag out fight where I have to force myself to sit down and finish the thing. And at this point, I'm in no way experiencing any of the emotions that first came to me when this
Yeah.
song appeared and when I wrote it. but finishing it and actually finishing it, that last, let's say 20%, and then the 10%, and then the mix, it's excruciating. I mean, it's absolutely excruciating. So to add more stress and pressure on that, that now I owe somebody money, I mean, we're not built for that. We're absolutely not built to take this many factors and think about them simultaneously. We're not, our brains cannot physically do that. And what a lot of us call writer's block is not writer's block. Our brains are saying, I know where you want to go. I'm trying to help you get to where you want to go, but you've given me so much I have to think about. I am trying to tell you to step away right now because we need to find a different avenue and a different way to get where you want to go. That's what our brains are saying. And we call it writer's block, and we celebrate crushing it and pushing through it and doing all-nighters. We celebrate this adolescent behavior. It's completely adolescent behavior. It's so immature and it's disgusting. We celebrate people who do that, but then you actually listen to the final product. And I go, I wish you wouldn't have done an all-nighter. I listen to my own work that I did all-nighters on and go, that was the problem. That was the problem, because it had to be this day. It had to come out on that day. Why? Because I told somebody it was going to come out. So my new thing with my distributor, Symphonic, I love Symphonic. I just told him, I'm not giving you dates anymore. Like, I'm not giving you dates that things are coming out. Because when you do stuff that really comes from the heart, my whole next album is about my childhood and my upbringing in rural Nebraska in the 1990s. You need time to sit with it. You need time to figure out when you want that stuff to come out. If you have your whole year mapped out in front of you before you've really got to a settling point with this, that's a recipe for disaster. So, they're like, well, we want to pitch for you. And for us to pitch for you, we need to be, as your distributor, we need to know when this stuff is going to be timed. And I just said, I'm really, really sorry. Like, I can't tell you. And if that means my work is going to fail because I can't give you a day that it's going to be released before it's finished, then either I'm in the wrong industry or this is the wrong way for the industry to function. Right. And this is in their defense. They know, they're artists themselves. Right. And that's the kind of company you want to be partnered with, is people who are writing and producing. They know that it's broken. They know that it's bankrupt. They know that it's in deficit. Yet at the same time, they feel like they've got to play by these rules that these DSPs, Apple and Spotify, want them to play by. But I mean, this is, I feel so much freedom in saying this. I feel good about not having these dates and deadlines anymore, because that means you're actually flowing with the rhythm of when the work is done. Like, so many composers over the last few hundred years wrote seasonally, right? They might spend most of their time writing during the winter months when they're indoors because it's natural. They're not out doing much. And then they would start finishing and releasing when things started blooming in the spring. They worked with the seasons. We've all but thrown that out the window. I want to get back to it. And that's how I started, by the way, like, doing my stuff. So when I say I want to get back to it, what am I saying? I want to get back to the original, natural, childlike state that I was writing music in before it was a business.
Yeah, it's so counterintuitive to what you hear everybody telling young artists to do these days. It's like, oh, you got to put out a song every 6 weeks. And it's like, I don't want to do that. And maybe if everyone didn't do that, there wouldn't be so much crap. You know, it's like we're facilitating the problem, and it's a cycle that is going to end
Mm-hmm.
somehow, right?
Yeah.
And I think the ability to like step out of that stream that is quickening into a rapid,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's incredibly wise to like step out onto the bank and be like, I don't want to participate in whatever this is. I want to try to build my own thing and do it the way I want to do. And it's one reason I have so much respect for you, because you were able to recognize this in a time where it was much more common just to go with a record label. Just sign with a label and they'll take care of everything, right? But you had sort of the wisdom, even back then, that I think you saw the bigger picture and you could think long term. And overall, I think that's been kind of the common theme of today's conversation, is broaden the time horizon, right? Stop worrying so much about what the next post does, what the next thing does. It's cliche at this point, but and I don't even remember who said it originally, but we overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in a decade, and that is has been proven to be so true in my own life, and I feel like um, you've reflected that as well in kind of your experience.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the encouragement. I really feel seen by you when you say that, and that means the world. Because that's, as artists, that's what we're wanting. We're wanting to be seen and heard. And for a lot of us, if we didn't have anyone in our families or in our relational circles whoever stopped us and said, I really think you're good at this, and I really want you to do it, and I really think the world needs this. If we didn't have that, we're going to be looking for it from the algorithm. We're going to be looking
Mm.
at it for it from the amount of people who watch our reels on Instagram. But if we have a deep internal conviction and a long term view, both paired together, the deep internal conviction saying, I know I am on this earth to do this stuff, whether or not it's commercially viable. And then number two, I believe in the time horizon being longer. Like I'm in this to make timeless stuff that may not be appreciated during my lifetime, but I believe it needs to be in the world. Those two paired together, that's it. That's it for me. That's the life of an artist who's producing music in the year 2023 and beyond. The conversation about should we even do this because we're not sure that this streaming service is even, going to be viable. Yes, you should still do it. The fact that we're even considering the people who run these huge conglomerates and corporations is a distraction from the process that's necessary in us that needs to get out. So, will we all go through seasons of feast and famine? Absolutely. Like, nobody in the music industry has a linear journey all the way up. And if they tell you that, they are completely lying. Even someone like Taylor Swift has not had that occur. But I can tell you that it's the beautiful rhythms and it's the learning from them instead of the freaking out and going into survival mode. If we can learn that, like, to me, if we can regulate and learn in the process, that's gold. So my encouragement to artists, especially right now, like, I hear the phrase the world is going to hell almost on a daily basis, whether it's another war or another shooting or another point of corruption that's been exposed. I think the easiest frequency to get on is the agreement that everything's corrupt, everything's broken, everything's slated against us, the world's going to hell, the country's falling apart. People just say this. It's complete groupthink. Now, I'm not saying that the stuff happening around us is not causing deep and seismic pain in the lives of people who are losing families and loved ones. What I am saying is it is the job of the artist to produce beauty and to bring that into the world. That's your job. You did not sign up to have a pre-existing streaming service that could just catapult your stuff out into the world. Your job is to get deep and granular. So when I see the terrorist attack in 2015 in Paris from ISIS, what do? Do I sit there and complain about how the world's burning? And, oh, let's not go to Paris and let's not go out because ISIS is out there? No, I wrote about it. I wrote about it the day afterward. That's my way of processing that event. That's what artists do. We don't sit here and complain. We don't blame systems and structures. We create. And I get it. Right now, it's easy to do that because we see Bandcamp selling. We see these signals out there of things changing. But our job is always the same. And so my suggestion to all of us as artists is to turn the noise down outside. Let's take a little break from social media. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, I try to stick with I'm off while I'm writing, I'm on when I'm releasing thing, right? But I love social media. It gets the best of me most of the time. But my job is to actually write and create things that transcend the situations. Because these people right now in Israel and Palestine, these people in Ukraine and Russia, these people who just lost yet another family member to another shooting in the US, they aren't sitting there in like a quiet room wanting to think about their grief. A lot of them want music. A lot of them want music, right? This is what blew my mind about the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The first thing my distributors did is send this virtue signaling email saying we're exiting Russia. Okay, so we're going to punish a bunch of civilians who didn't create the war By removing music from them, you think that's going to help a society? No, we need to make music accessible, right? It's the I'm going to get canceled for saying that, but I literally don't give a shit. Our job is to create the music so that people have a companion in the midst of their pain, right? That's the job, right? And most of us are doing that. We're trying to make music that connects with people. What's more connective than a world that's in pain, right? But we don't have that conversation often, do we? Why? And this is where I have compassion. We don't have many mentors and examples. We don't have a lot of people running YouTube channels on social media who are saying that. We have a lot of people who are trying to scare us or who are adding shame and guilt on top of that, right? So I don't know if that's connecting or making sense, but I think we're looking in the completely wrong direction right now. I think we're looking up and out. We're not looking in. We're not quiet. We're not centered. We're not writing from that place often. And I don't say we like we're all missing it. Maybe I should be saying me. Am I looking internal, right? Am I getting quiet? Am I looking to bless the world through my work? Because we're in the service industry. This is where I'll land this plane. We are in the service industry. I have been extremely, extremely blessed and lavished on in my career monetarily. I'm not gonna dismiss that. I am still doing the same thing I've always done. I have not changed an iota of the method and the direction that I'm aiming my work at. That's what I'm getting at. Some of us are going to earn and we're going to benefit monetarily from that. Others of us are not. Does that mean the gift is not valid because there's not huge financial incentive behind it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So when we correlate the gift that we've been given and its perceptive success with a monetary value, it's already bankrupt. The whole conversation's over because no one can ever win that argument. If we're thinking it wasn't good because it didn't stream, that's where we get internal, we shut down, and our career ends in 2 to 3 years, right? But if we can pass that hurdle and go, it may just not be now, and it might be in the future, we have to keep that hope alive, right? And so I hope artists are not thinking, oh, Tony's saying I'm going to be one of the people that doesn't. No, we have to keep the hope alive. But the hope is if we keep doing this in one direction, maybe one day it will be discovered. Maybe it is through a service that doesn't exist yet. So I want to encourage people. It can happen. It can happen. It does happen. It still will happen. But if you're one of those artists that doesn't financially benefit from it, it doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It might just mean your music is not for a mass market or a commercial market.
That is such a good thing, and we can end with that if you'd like. That is such a good thing to kind of wrap up everything that we've talked about today. I think hope is so important. I know, and I've shared this with you before, that I was in kind of a dark place musically before I started the YouTube channel
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like I wanted to do things that weren't quite in the playlisting realm. They didn't playlist super well. I wanted to put distortion and everything and then try to, put it in ambient playlist, and it didn't work. So I was not in a good place and I started to feel hopeless. But I tried to get out of that by saying, well, what can I do? What can I do? That's it. It's like, rather than just complain about it, it's like,
Right.
what are the alternatives? Because that's hard. Now, it is hard to come up with alternatives and figure things out. But it's so easy to just complain about it, and it solves nothing. It doesn't help. In fact, it actually hurts you because I started to get depressed, and then I wasn't making music, and I wasn't doing anything valuable, you know? So if you can get past that, there is a pain point when no one listens to what you just put out. But if you can continue to, as you just so eloquently addressed, if you can continue to push through that and see that it does have value, whether or not everyone else sees that it does or not, and continue to focus on the one thing of getting better and continuing to write the stuff that you want to write, I really do think that that comes through. And there will be people, even if it's an obscure genre, very experimental, there will be people that connect with it somewhere.
100%.
And
100%.
those people will find it if you
Yes.
continue to do it long enough.
They will. Every single time they will. If people will stick with it long enough. And I hope they do.
Absolutely.
I hope they do because the world needs your music. It does. I'm speaking to you directly. It needs your music. and I believe in you, and I believe in your work, and I learn from you, and I don't want the world to exist without you and your work in it. And so I feel that about you. And there are a lot of people whose work I want to hear. And if they deprive us of that by getting stuck at the first set of obstacles, it's a tragedy because we need it.
Mm.
We absolutely need it. And I hope there are platforms that are not Spotify in the future. Right now, let's work with what we have. We don't understand it, but let's work with what we have because it's a damn good algorithm. It's damn good. And I say this all respect to Apple, but if Apple had figured out how to get in the game earlier, we might have two of those. Right now, we've got one. So is it corrupt? Yeah. Is it broken? Absolutely. Is it comparative? Hell yeah, it is comparative. But it's what we have right now. And that should not influence the work we're making. If anything, it should be influenced by the work we're making. So let's do that. Let's do that. Maybe my Nebraska album bombs. Maybe it does, but it's going to come from my heart. It'll be a bomb from my heart. Speaking of bombs, I am in Berlin, where my ancestors bombed. Did they? No, we were being bombed because I was German. You're not allowed to say you were German anymore because you'll get canceled.
That's true. That's a good point.
But my American ancestors bombed me. So I'm both the victim and the one who caused the war. So what is a millennial in cancel culture supposed to do when you're both the victim, Chocolate Santa, when you're both the victim and the one doing the war? Could someone help me with that in the comments? Maybe like tell me what.
Can you go to therapy and counsel yourself? Is that the
Yeah.
ultimate form of self-love?
BetterHelp,
I
sign
think
up
it
for
is.
a free account, sign up to be a counselor at the same
Right.
time. I
Yeah,
just
not
booked myself.
not sponsored, but if they want to, we can do that. Tony,
They should.
there was one question
Yeah, say it.
that I did want to address
I'm
before I
here for
let
it.
you
I'm
go.
here for it. I'm here for it.
Someone said, please just never take the oath of the dark side.
I think I saw this. What is that?
Many artists fall into this trap for fortune and fame. And I think it's important that we address this today. Because I'm pretty sure you can actually take the oath of the dark side online. Many artists fall into this trap for fortune and fame, prayer hands.
They did prayer hands.
They did prayer hands, thoughts and prayers, I guess.
What
But
is
yeah,
the oath?
you can take the oath online, I think now. Is that what AI is?
Because this person explained this so poorly, it makes me want to take this oath. Like next time, person who you are, I love you and support you. Tell me what the oath is, because I can't not do something that I don't know what it is. I also can't proactively do it if I don't know what it is. So I feel
It's the oath of the dark side, Tony. I don't know how you could be more clear about that.
I feel like as we're ending this interview, I feel completely filled with futility at this point that I don't know where or how to take this oath or not to do it.
Just get on
I'm
ChatGPT and
afraid.
type in the oath, quotation marks, of the dark side,
I'm not
and then
doing it.
include the prayer hands, and maybe just see what it spits out.
No, I think that comment was in the Chinese weather balloon that we shot down, and that comment is like a bot, and that's probably what that was. That's where I'm going to file that in my mind. So I've become an expert on hotel culture because we literally, bro, like 5 weeks we've been staying in hotels. And by the way, I haven't seen a single bed bug. So all the people who freaked out over the Paris bed bug, thanks for not coming to Paris because it was amazing because so few people were there.
Tragically, most of them were lost in the Notre Dame fire. I heard.
But hotel art is tragic, bro. Like hotel art is so bad. And to my shock, there's a guy who sits down at breakfast because hotel friends, they're the best. They are. When you go out and you travel and you meet a hotel friend, it's like you're in another parallel dimension. You would talk to people you would otherwise ignore and actively avoid, but you'll talk to him at a hotel breakfast. Where are you guys from? Oh, no way. I've got a son there. He listens to music. You should talk to him. He listens to music too. Oh my God, you would love him. Anyway, this guy's across the table from me and he goes, am I the only person who loves the art in this hotel? He goes, it's incredible. He goes, and guess what? Lucky me, I found out last night that artist was in town doing an exhibition. And I went in there planning not to buy a piece, but I couldn't help myself. My girlfriend, she just loved this piece, and I had to buy it. So here's his name. Here's his name. Brooke goes, oh, she's being so kind. She goes, where are you from? He goes, New York. I go, what do you do? He goes, finance. I was like, oh, cool. Like Succession. He's like, he just looked at me, complete blank stare. And he left, and I was like, I couldn't wait for that conversation to end. That's what I said to Brooke. I said, I've never met someone who I was so endearing, who I couldn't wait to stop listening to what they were saying. Almost like on lockdown. His head pokes out from around the corner. He goes, do you guys like modern art? Here, go to this museum. He gives us like a list of things we had to do. I died. I died inside. So I feel like it's going to happen again tonight, but I just am here to say you don't have to look at hotel art. If you're someone who's struggling with looking at hotel art and it's bringing you like serious anxiety and depression, like you just don't have to. And that's what I've been shielding you from. You shouldn't have to look at that. But if you do, there's hope. There's help. Tony Anderson.
But that doesn't mean that the artist should not have painted it.
I think this is AI. And in this case, it shouldn't have been painted.
Does it say Google Bard at the bottom?
Okay. Here's why I feel comfortable making fun of this.
Midjourney?
No, there's no signature. And a true artist leaves their signature, don't they? You know what this is?
It's just a QR code.
She's holding a loaf of bread. That's what that is. That's bread.
Looks like she's casting a spell on it.
Yeah. And she's got this bizarro hair, like Tron, like we're in Tron Legacy, no signature.
Is she casting the dark oath on the bread?
I think she is. You know, I can't take it off the wall either, because part of me is just like, I have to sleep next to this. That's my pillow, and I have to sleep next to that. Okay?
Well, it's attached to the wall, right? Isn't that what you just demonstrated? It's a load-bearing painting.
I want to burn it, but the last time I started a fire at the Notre Dame, things didn't go well.
Tony, by the way, stop starting fires in Europe, please. For the love of God.
I do want to address my bio. Can I address my bio? Can I get
absolutely, a public absolutely, please.
Okay.
You have the floor.
I know that I am getting a lot of attention on major media outlets about my role in the Notre Dame fire of 2022 that is lesser known. I was chosen to repair the Notre Dame after the 2019 fire. In 2022, I was up there searing some beef over open coals in the left bell tower. My father was an ancient building restorer and was killed by a bell falling on him in Rome in 1997, which is why I go to bell towers to meditate and think about my father. He used to call me his little hunchback. I was searing beef over open coals in the left bell tower. Left, not right. And I got distracted, and it did cause another fire, which local firemen did say was worse than the original. I apologized. I went home, cleaned myself up, show up for work the next morning. My badge doesn't work to get in. And they've hired someone else who, you know, they're doing a great job, I guess I can't get in. So if you're watching this and you could call the Notre Dame, just put it into Google, and ask them to reinstate me, it would mean a lot. I'm just saying. So I don't know whose attention to get. So I changed my Spotify bio to my current situation. So if you're reading this,
smart.
I've had to do so many interviews on CBN, CBR, Fox, Reuters. I think Reuters is Good Night America is in play. So look, I've been doing a lot of these because I think people think this is a joke. I didn't know what else to do. Okay. With these algorithms and these things, I don't know whose attention to get anymore. So our Spotify bio is basically our Facebook status. So for you Zoomers who don't know, Facebook status used to be the main way to reach people.
Yeah, what are you thinking today, right?
That's your Spotify bio. So don't come to me and tell me that you think I have a problem mentally because of my Notre Dame situation. I'm free to sear beef over open coals anywhere I please. Thank you.
This is America. Well,
France. Now, importantly, I did apologize. Okay. I took responsibility for my beef fire and I won't do it again. I'll bring pre-cooked beef, which is, they told me as the firemen were putting it out, they said, you didn't think to cook this morning. And like, but we learn, we live and we learn and we keep sailing and we make mistakes and we push forward. And that's America.
There it is.
This is why I think France is here and America is off the screen in the future ahead, right? Because we forgive each other, we roll with it, we learn, we make mistakes. So that's my public statement. That's all I'd like to say at this time. So anyway, I'll go where I'm wanted, and like I told you, I came to Berlin today to clean up after the Second World War, because there were two, and the second one sort of ended here, based on what I've read. And most of it's cleaned up, but I've been everywhere I go today. If I see a cigarette butt on the ground, clean it up. That's evidence of war in someone's lungs, right? So I could help there.
And a fire hazard.
Yes, we learn. Small thing, but if I see trash on the ground, it could be rubble from a nearby building. I've seen some bullet holes in walls, so I know the war did happen here. I'm in the right place. So then, like I told you, I went over to the wall today because there was a wall in Berlin, and guess what it was called?
I'm blanking. I feel like I should know this.
The Berlin Wall. It was famous.
Oh, yeah.
And it separated basically two countries. So I get it
confused. I get it confused with the Great Wall. So I think that's why I couldn't remember.
That's in Japan. So
Got it.
The Berlin Wall separated the two parts of basically India, Pakistan, and then the two sides of Berlin. It was huge. And I went over there today to take it down because, walls separate people and we should not have them. And we shouldn't have borders either, but we'll talk about that on our next episode, right?
That's a whole podcast.
So I start going over there to disassemble it, and lo and behold, it's gone. And I'm thinking, does no one want to publish this information, right? I'm trying to be useful. Music hasn't been going that well. Notre Dame doesn't end well for me. I kind of got burned in that situation, if you know what I mean. And here I am.
I do.
And I don't know. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at a dark, gloomy Berlin right now, and I just go, should I just book a flight out of here and go where someone actually wants me? Because look, here's the problem with that fire. I'm not supposed to talk about it. It burned. It's too late for that. So anyway, I don't want to relive it or cause other people to, but it's a serious problem that we just cancel each other over these small multi-million-dollar mistakes. People lose millions of dollars a day in the stock market. They're not canceled. They can come right back to work the next day. Weathermen are wrong every day about the weather and keep their jobs. Right. And here's me just trying to help the whole world out. And I get it. Crosshairs, everyone's looking at Tony Anderson right now. When's he going to finish the Notre Dame? That's the number one question most media outlets are asking right now. When is he going to finish? And I'll say this and then I'll be done. I'll finish when I get my job back. Right? So my listening audience, my supporters, my haters, you call the Notre Dame. Give me a third shot, because there was a fire beforehand I've been talking about. So the fire beforehand I never talked about. Give me a third shot. It's like American football. Third strike and you're out.
While you did not want to relive it and did not want to rehash it,
I was brave.
I think it was important that you said so. However, I am now feeling even more anxiety and depression because of you transferring. So it was very selfish of you, really, is what I'm trying to say. And I feel like for me, who is already going through the loss of a trash can, it was a little traumatic for me.
I added more, and I'm sorry for my privilege in even saying anything. I should have known. So I'm sorry that for my existence, for my presence, and for the harm that I caused you biologically, having those words having to go through the small space between your ear and your headphone. Get in here, go there. Not many people know that, and then have to go in your body. Cause pain.
It goes here.
I love you so much.